Hi, welcome to Chard Review. The story is about a wealthy businessman named Kim Minkyu who suffers from a strange disease. Whenever he gets in physical contact with another human, he starts having terrible rashes on his body, followed by shortness of breath. In extreme cases, he can even faint or die. Minkyu's biggest wish is to have a girlfriend, but due to his illness, he can't approach women. A likely excuse, and because of the same reason, he has isolated himself for 15 years in his house. His personal doctor, Dr. O, is his only confidant who has tried several ways to find a cure. But to no avail. Hence, one day, he tells Minkyu to accept his solitary life and hands him a smartwatch that uses colors to monitor his allergic condition. Blue is normal, yellow represents a mild reaction, orange means that Minkyu's airways are closing, and red means that he will die in minutes, a severity that he's never experienced. One day, a genius scientist named Professor Hong contacts Minkyu. He reveals that he, along with his team, has succeeded in developing a highly intelligent robot that is capable of helping Minkyu with his household chores. And since she's not a human, she will not cause any harm to him. The cost for this robot is 100 billion won. 100 billion in Q feels like this is a scam, but out of curiosity, he goes to the lab to meet with Professor Hong, and as soon as he reaches there, he is welcomed by a robot that looks exactly like a beautiful woman. She introduces herself as Allergy, a highly advanced AI robot created by Professor Hong. Minkyu was stunned by her appearance, and when he touches her, there is no abnormal change in him. Excited by this new discovery, he immediately expresses his desire to buy. Actually 3, and even invests funds in the project. But first he wants to test the robot tomorrow. Unfortunately, that night at the lab disaster strikes, one of Professor Hong's team members clumsily spills a droplet of soda in Allergy core processor, causing it to short-circuit. The professor and the rest of the team are devastated as it may take several days to repair the robot, and since their deal can be cancelled if AJI-3 is not delivered to Minkyu the following day, Professor Wong is forced to think of a new plan. He remembers that his ex-girlfriend Jaya, who has revealed to be the prototype of the robot Allergy. Since Wong built the robot exactly like her, he goes to meet her. Both of them have an awkward reunion, and realizing that Jia is experiencing financial difficulty, he offers her a salary of 10 million won if she agrees to disguise herself as Allergy for one day. Jihad doesn't want to do a favor for her ex, but since she's in dire need of money, she agrees to the offer. Following this, Professor Wong takes Giant to his lab and shows her the robot. Then all the scientists team up and help her disguise like Allergy. They fit armor in her body, put a new wig on her head, and even give her contact lenses. These lenses will actually function as cameras, which will help the professor and his team monitor everything via the real Allergy robot. They can also send instructions, which Jia will receive from her lens in the form of text or videos. The next day, Jia is sent to Minkyu's house as scheduled, but when he opens the box, she jumps back and, surprise, it turns out that she has met him previously when she worked as a food delivery girl. The experience was very bad as Minkyu tried leaving without paying. But in reality, he was just trying to avoid physical contact with her, a likely excuse taken aback. Minkyu immediately calls the professor and demands to know what's going on. Fortunately, the latter makes up a story that Allergy has two modes, operational and friend mode. Operational mode is where she acts professional while in friend mode, and she acts more like a human. The robot is now in friend mode, but it can be changed to operational mode by pressing the reset button. The naive Minkyu immediately believes this and presses the button behind the robot's neck to reboot after Giant turns to normal. Minkyu decides to conduct an intelligence test on her. Just then the lab power gets cut off, resulting in Jia losing total connection to the AGI-3 system. Now she has to rely on herself, but her IQ is only 94. At first, Jia is asked to unlock a box whose password can only be found by solving a complex calculus within 3 minutes. Obviously she doesn't know calculus, so she simply breaks the box open, which takes me in Cuba surprise. Then she is asked to peel an egg without using tools within 10 seconds. Having worked in restaurants previously, she easily completes this task. Minkyu is really impressed, so he praises the robot for being smart and creative. Gia's, who has never been praised for being smart, gently smiles. Meanwhile, the lab electricity also comes back on, but when they connect to Ja's lenses, they're shocked to see her yelling at Minshew. She's accusing him of being a pervert. It turns out that Gia is outraged to find him staring at her chest, which he notes is bigger than it was the day before. He wants to open her up to check the battery pack and extends his hand to her chest. "You'll likely excuse." The professor drops to his knees in horror and is barely able to answer when Min-K phones. "Who are you trying to deceive right now?" Min-K demands, but they're relieved when he actually only accuses them of using cheap batteries, making Aji-3's chest swell up. Hong stutters for a while and lies that he's simply upgraded Aji-3's battery pack. He also warns Min-K to not touch her chest. "Just don't do that." After hanging up, Min-K proceeds to have his medicine, but he suddenly chokes. He drops on the floor and starts to convulse, but fortunately, GL helps him by patting his back as Min-K comes back to his senses. He stares at the robot with astonishment when he inquires why she helped him without any orders. Giant replies that she can do many things after this. The two have physical contact for the first time, but surprisingly, Minshew does not experience any allergic reaction. Finally, at the end of the day, Gia is brought back to the lab. Professor Hong scolds her because she was almost exposed, but Gia is annoyed because she believes that she did a good job. Frustrated that she's never appreciated, she storms out of the place. Soon the professor receives unpleasant news that the special part they'd ordered for Aji-3's repair was mistakenly sent to Africa, and it is now at least 2 weeks away. To make matters worse, Min-K also calls him at that exact moment and reveals his desires to take Aji-3 for a month. He wants to deep learn the robot and make it fully functional according to his needs. Left with no options, the professor calls Gia again and requests her to disguise as the robot for some weeks. This time he praises her and offers an even larger sum, because of which she agrees right away. Then Professor Hong explains that from now onwards, until the real Aji-3 is repaired, Gia will have to work at the mansion, and every night she will be returned to the lab for recharging. Unfortunately, the very next day at work, Giant experiences explosive diarrhea. She tries to hold it in, but accidentally farts. Confused, Minshew asks, "What's that sound?" To which the robot replies, "You fart, my master?" Soon the smell spreads around the house, so she suggests that he change clothes. The gullible Menk believes her, since there's no one else except them, so he leaves. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Gia rushes to the toilet to poop. However, Min-K returns early and finds that the robot is missing. He looks for her all around the house and eventually finds her spraying his expensive perfume in the toilet. She pretends to be cleaning the toilet, but Min-K doesn't believe her, claiming that robots cannot touch water. However, she lies that she is an advanced AI who is adept at washing dishes. When Menk is about to leave, he finds that Giant's face is sweaty. He tries to approach her, accidentally steps on some soap and slips. Gia rushes to Min-Q, but instead of saving him, she catches the perfume instead. Sadly, she lands right on top of him, hurting his ribs because of her iron plate. That evening, when Gia is cleaning, she accidentally knocks down the card castle that Minshew has compiled for 15 years. Seeing this event unfold, Minshew screams in agony. But before he can say anything more, Gia says that her battery is reached 5% and pretends to be in standby mode. He later meets the professor by saying that he's frustrated with her mistakes. But the professor tells him to give her more time to deep learn. Min-K agrees to give Aji-3 more time. The next day Min-K lights up to see a visitor and warns Jian not to come outside. It is Real, his first love. However, his excitement soon turns to horror when Real touches his shoulder. Minshew tries to keep his face averted and manages to hide his spreading rash from Real. He then pretends to have an important meeting and rushes back to the house. Somehow he staggers to his off-limits room and reaches for the antidote syringe, but since he is too weak, he fails to grab them. By the time Giant finds him, Minshew has collapsed to the floor, struggling to breathe. Just then, the scene flashes back to when everything was normal for Min-K, back to the times when he didn't have an allergy to human touch. Little Minkwa's parents cheer him on as he builds his very first house of cards. When it topples down, Dad chases away his disappointment with some cool card tricks and another memory. Everyone gathers for Mickey's birthday party on the drive home. The entire family plays word games, but unfortunately, as Dad rolls down his window, one of the birthday balloons but in his face and their car gets caught in the path of an oncoming truck. Min-K next wakes up in the hospital sobbing for his parents, both of whom were killed in the crash. I'll never look at balloons the same way again. During the day, several relatives visit him and try to become his legal guardian. The main motive is to inherit his parents' money. But when Min-K enters the bathroom and checks his pockets, he finds a mysterious message which reads, "Don't sign anything." Later that day, a friend of his named Uchu approaches him and hands him an adoption paper. Uchu mentions that his father sent him and that it would be great if Min-K will be his brother Minka. Thanks for a while and eventually signs the adoption papers. Thrilled, Mutual grips his friend's hand to give him support, but when Min-K looks down he notices Mutual's hands turning into monstrous claws. Terrified, Monk runs away screaming while strange blisters start forming on his hands where Mutual touched him. After a while, Mutual returns to his father and hands him over the adoption papers, saying that the task has been completed, but when the father goes through the last page, he sees "son of a bitch" written in place of Minka's signature. With this, he realizes that the kid simply wants to be left alone. Elsewhere, little Min-K returns to his dark, empty mansion, and from that day onwards he lives away from other humans. Feeling betrayed by everyone, he starts despising other humans, hence resulting in the allergy. To make matters worse, as he grows up, no one knows about his allergy except his personal doctor. Back in the present, Minchu jolts awake with the giant beside him. 10:01. He tells her that he was dreaming of people stabbing him in the back. However, he's surprised to find that he's in totally normal condition. It's not even a mark on him, hence he squishes GIA's, Sheik seemingly grateful that she gave him the injection. As their relationship deepens, John and Minchu spend more time together and get even closer. One day, Min-K asks her to accompany him on a date with Real. The date doesn't go too well and as Real stands to leave, she suggests that they shake hands as friends. Reluctantly, Minchu takes her hand, which results in his allergy kicking in. Soon he starts having labored breathing, and by the time he grabs his syringe, he is caught in two minds whether to use it or not. As he is tired of his miserable life, just then, his smartwatch starts beeping faster and he eventually drops the syringe. Fortunately, she arrives and brings him to his senses. She sits next to him, and when Miku looks at her, his reaction lessens and the monitor returns to normal. It appears as if he is completely recovered even without the syringe. Shortly after, the two decide to return back to the apartment, but when they are turning a corner, Min-K accidentally collides with a gardener and falls down. The latter immediately grabs him in queue to check if he's alright, but surprisingly, the allergies don't kick in. Seeing this, he tries to test himself by joining large crowds, something he hasn't done in 15 years. Later, as the two venture out, a child bumps Min-Q's hand, but again nothing happens. Then the two join a crowd to watch an outdoor performance where Minchu jumps. When the person next to him grabs his hand for the wave, a check of his monitor shows that all is well. As a result, Ming's eyes fill with tears and he softly says, "I'm finally cured." Following this, he walks to a quiet spot and calls his personal doctor, Dr. O, but as he is tearfully confessing that his allergy is gone, a passerby bumps into him, causing his monitor to beep voraciously. Meanwhile, Shia starts looking for MQ, and when the two meet the latter's pulse slows down and his rashes start to disappear. Minchu looks at her in amazement, and when the couple blocks his view, his symptoms return. When Dr. O asks if there's anybody nearby, Min-K admits someone is here. "When I see someone, the rashes go away, and when I don't see someone, the rashes come back." However, as GIA smiles and waves, Min-K tearfully admits it's not a person. After hanging up the call, Minka embraces Gia and tells her, "It was because you were by my side. He promises to buy the world's longest lasting batteries for her and even goes on to say, "Stay with me forever until I die. You are now my most precious treasure." As GIAs stares in disbelief, the nearby crowd starts cheering for the two, prompting Min-Kyu to kiss her on the forehead. No ring though. Cheap bastard. Back home, Min-Kyu ancestor Dr. Oh, that even though he had contact with many people, he is perfectly fine. He then stands in front of his full-length mirrors. While he holds up the phone to verify his claim, Dr. O was amazed that for the first time in several years, Min-K doesn't require medication after human contacts. He clarifies that it was because of the robot that's been with Min-K for the past 10 days and calls it a miracle. Then he tells Min-K to list everything that happened since the robot appeared so that they can figure out how he was cured. Over the course of the next few days, several experiments are conducted. All of them point out that Min-K will be fine with humans as long as the robot GI is with him. Hence, he takes her with him whenever he wants to meet somebody and considers her the most valuable asset that he owns. In the meantime, the Allergy 3 robot is finally repaired. It can function normally, but will require some time to adapt and make the transition smooth. Professor Hong claims that he will need some more days before Allergy 3 deep learns and is ready. GIAs, who has started getting used to her new life, is sad about the news. One day Min-Kyu takes Fiat to a fancy restaurant but makes her sit alone at a separate table. Then he warmly receives Riel and her father. As the three interact, a clearly upset Giant looks on. After a while, when Min-K comes to collect her, she ignores his hand and leaves on her own. This goes on for a while. Min-Kyu is safe only when Jia is around, but one day everything changes. When he is alone, Min-K pulls into a gas station and opens his trunk, where credit cards and cash are at the ready. When the attendant returns his card, he brushes against Minsky's finger, but the latter is too distracted to notice and simply drives away. However, after just a few minutes, he realizes that he touched the attendant's hand and checks himself for a rash, surprisingly. And then Q finds nothing and his monitor also shows that he's normal, even though he's alone, so he arranges a meeting with his personal doctor. On reaching the hospital, Min-K hugs a speechless doctor. Oh, and thanks him for his hard work the last 15 years, indicating that he has finally been cured completely. After he calms down, the doctor inquires if something made him happy, and Min-Kyu answers that he finally understands love. As expected, Dr. O assumes that Min-Kyu was talking about Real, so he suggests that he also thank Allergy 3. He then tells Min-Kyu that he can send Allergy 3 away now, explaining that Min-K became attached to the robot because she was his first friend in 15 years, but now that he's cured completely, he can get more happiness from an attachment made to a human. Min-K protests that IG3 made him happy, but Dr. O calls it an illusion. He wants Min-K to experience the touch of someone he truly loves. That evening, a depressed man Q approaches Professor Hong and reveals that he is in love with the robot IG3. Hong finds it understandable that Min-K has become obsessed with the first friend he made in 15 years, the one who is also responsible for his cure. Min-K then confides that IG3 makes him feel alive, but Professor Wong reminds him that they're talking about a robot which was pre-programmed. Hearing this, Min-Kyu admits that he is going crazy and with teary eyes he begs the professor for a solution. The following day, Wong comes to Min-Kyu and tells him that there's one way. He proposes that they reset IG3 as this way she will forget everything and help him move on. Min-Kyu is devastated, but he knows that this is the only way. Later that day, Jia also hears the news heartbroken. He dresses up as Allergy 3 for one last time. The next time we see her, she stands in front of Min-K in his house as snow falls outside. He takes her for a walk for one last time and returns to the mansion. They finally face each other and Min-Kyu tells her that the things he showed her today are parts of the everyday life that she gave back to him after 15 long years. Min-Kyu then thanks her for being so many things to him, including his friend and his cure, and he apologizes again. Gio struggles to hold back tears as she expresses how thankful and sorry she is too. She only hopes that he can be happy in the coming days. Min-Kyu stares at her, and as a tear falls, he manages to calmly order Allergy 3 into operation mode. After this, he announces that he's about to reset her, prompting Jia to remind him that all of their memories will be permanently deleted. Despite this, Minchu agrees to proceed, but before he can press the button, he takes out his mother's necklace and places it around Giant's neck. He then embraces her and hits the button before inputting his final message. "I love you," as Giant starts to count down to the reset. Q succumbs to his tears and holds her tightly. Once she reaches 1, she finally lets a tear fall back in the lab. The Allergy 3 reports that Mickey's folder has been deleted. That night, Minchu and Xia cry themselves to sleep in their respective homes. Jia cries so much that she falls ill the following morning. She's taken to the hospital due to severe dehydration, and there we see that she is still wearing Q's necklace as they move on with their lives. Jia moves to her hometown with her grandma while Min-K prepares for his wedding with Real. One day, Minchu gets on the train, where he runs into a familiar face. She is none other than Jia, whom INQ believes is his ex-robot. However, despite the two sitting next to each other, they don't utter a word. Jia is under strict orders to not react to him, while Minchu is skeptical if she's really a robot or not. You guys know that feeling. Wasting no time, Menk calls Professor Wong to ask how he came up with Allergy 3's face. Wong reveals that he made the robot based on someone he knew, which resembles her face, personality, habits, and so on. Minky wonders if it is possible to interact with her, and Wong says yes. However, he asserts that it would be best if he doesn't talk so that things don't get awkward between the two. Despite the advice, Min-K follows her all the way to her grandma's shop and offers to chat with her. However, she uses the excuse that she is currently busy, but being the stubborn man that he is, Minchu is determined to wait for her. Meanwhile, Xia hurries into the kitchen and takes off the necklace around her neck and hides it on a plate. Hours pass by, but Minchu still hasn't laughed, so Jia is compelled to interact with him. She admits that she tucked Dr. Howe's money 4 years ago to become a character model, but that's about it. Minkyu tries to ask more, but Jail warns him to go away or else she will call the police. However, Min-K cleverly asks her grandma if she has an available room and does yes horror. The old lady says yes and lets him stay for the night. For the next few days, he bonds with grandma, which also catches Giant's attention, reminding her of her time with him. One evening, grandma asks Giant to pick up goods from a warehouse, but since it's already dark, she asks Min-K to accompany her. Reluctantly, as Yaw drives him to the place. During the journey, they look at each other's faces and remember the past. Soon Jia starts opening up and they chat all the way until they reach the warehouse. But as they are picking up the required goods, unfortunately someone locks the door, unaware that 2 people are still inside. Left with no choice, the couple is forced to spend the night inside where they start bonding even more. The next day, someone finally unlocks the warehouse door and notices the couple asleep next to each other. After waking up, they return to Grandma's store and help her with cooking. At one point Min-Q almost spots the necklace, but before he can, Jia again hides it. The next day, Min-Kwa again arrives at the restaurant, but learns that Jia has already left. Sad, he looks for her everywhere until he finds her by the pier. Seeing him, Jia quickly covers the necklace, but it's too late. Because of this, Minka starts reminiscing about the last day when he was with Allergy 3. Realizing that he was scammed, he becomes enraged. But just before he can say anything, his allergy reappears and the indicator shows red, something which has never happened before. In the final scene, he falls to the ground in despair, with very little chances of survival. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below, and if you like the video, please like and subscribe for more movie recaps. Thank you for watching.